CWL Miami right around the corner. Pro League regular season is completed. So we need to do power rankings to figure out who exactly is looking good and who might not be looking good at all going into the play-in bracket and, of course, the Miami playoffs. That and more coming right up. Sorry, I've been a little MIA for you guys. After I took my little vacation to Atlanta, I took a couple of days for myself here to kind of get myself resituated. Had to do a bunch of stat stuff, some graphic stuff. So yes, we're going to get some video content coming back out for you guys on a regular basis. Starting with this one, the power rankings, ranking every single team from 16 up to number 1 as far as who you might expect to be walking away with Miami. Now, I will be doing a different video to talk about the play-in bracket and the head-to-heads there specifically, as well as what the format is for Miami. So if you're not 100% familiar with what that looks like, stick around, make sure you subscribe because you'll get that video here in the near future. Let's go ahead and go into our power rankings, starting off at the very, very bottom at the number 16 spot. Now, this shouldn't come as any kind of a surprise because UIU has been absolutely atrocious lately, and they will be sitting down here in the number 16 spot for me. The biggest thing about this squad of Phantom, Saints, Methods, Blast, and Classic is the fact that there's just nobody here who's going to be performing to the level that is really kind of comparable to the top, even I would say 12 teams out there. There's not an all-star anywhere in here. They went 0-6 in Hardpoint, 2-2 in Search, good for you, I suppose, and 0-4 in Control. So the respawn is an absolute joke. In fact, they almost got beat on average on Hardpoint by over 100 points. They averaged 153 points for them, while obviously giving up the full 250. They've almost lost on average a 100-point deficit going on their Hardpoints. That's absolutely terrible. Honestly, your expectations for this team should not be super high. I'll check who they play first in the play-in bracket. They will be playing up against Envy. So, I mean, another pretty bad team, so who knows? Maybe there's some hope there for UIU, but I'm going to hold on to what I said. With this team not winning a set for the rest of the year, I can't see it happening. Maybe if they get lucky and play up against some team from the open bracket, but I think that's even still just a pretty large maybe. Going into my 15th spot, I've actually got Elevate in the 15th spot, and I know I was speaking pretty highly about them in their hardpoint, and honestly, that's well merited because this team did look pretty solid in their hardpoint. They are 2-6 as a full roster, not the greatest, but 196 is their average, only giving up 219. My biggest worry for this team is their control has looked very, very bad. They've had a couple of interesting search and destroys. Obviously, Whalers kind of choking against OpTic in Game 5, but regardless of that, they've been kind of back and forth, and frankly, I just can't trust the consistency of this team. Honestly, beyond that, it's just not a lot of experience on this team. Yeah, you've got players that have been playing mostly in the Pro League or close to being mostly in the Pro League throughout the entirety of the year, but kind of the same story for UIU. I just don't see an all-star in this team, and I don't see anyone who can clutch things up. We've seen that time and time again. They lost all of their matches in their week, and again, yes, they played up against what I think a lot of people would consider to be a pretty difficult schedule, but I just can't see them doing all that well. They'll play up against Midnight, and personally, after they already lost to them 1-3, I can't see them beating them again in the play-in bracket. So keeping them in my 15th spot. In the 14th spot, a little bit of a, well, staying the same, actually, to be honest. I still got Units up in here, and honestly, for Units, this team has looked actually pretty decent across most of the modes, as they were able to find themselves a 240 average on Hardpoint, doing very well on Hardpoint. Didn't look so great in the Search and Destroy. That was one of their bigger weaknesses, I would say, is the only one a single map that was versus FaZe, but they looked pretty solid in this Control, even though they split the Control 2-2. Most of those Control maps went the distance, as they would either go to round 4 or round 5. So for Units, I think there's a lot of work to be done, but I see that their Search and Destroy is going to get better before Elevator UIUs do. That's just what it comes down to. I can't see them being bad at S&D for much longer, and they've had a lot of time to work on it. They even admitted that Search and Destroy was not what they were worried about when they were playing in the cross-divisional when they played. So I think Units will be a little bit of a higher ceiling. Obviously, them going 2-2 and winning against FaZe Clan gives you some faith as well. In my 13th spot, I've got Evil Geniuses taking a little bit of a hit, and I was hoping for bigger things, honestly, from Evil Geniuses. But it didn't really kind of come to be, obviously, as they were only able to go 2-2 with losses to Splice as well as Enigma 6, but they went Game 5 every single game they played, including a win versus 100 Thieves and obviously beating Units, which is why I have them slightly above. Technically, this Evil Genius team, I would honestly see being a little bit higher up potentially, but you look at some of the losses that they suffered, and it didn't look super, super great. Since they made a couple of roster changes, they're 17 and 18 in the hardpoint, they're 15 and 12 in the search, and 8 and 11 in the control. So technically, this is a better team than what they've had previously, but I'm still a little worried to think what this team is actually going to be able to do. Accuracy has been doing relatively well, I think, for Phantoms, so this is a team that, again, I see potentially have a higher ceiling and potential top 12, but they do go up against Enigma 6 in their first play-in game, so, again, I don't know if I see that happening in their favor, as it's going to be a tough matchup for them. In the 12th spot, Envy, I have, again, slipping down a little bit. I was expecting a lot bigger things from Envy. I mean, if I'm being completely frank, this is a squad that went 2 and 4 in hardpoint, 2 and 3 in search, and 2 and 2 in the control. So not bad overall, but they only won a single game, and that was versus OpTic, who we'll talk about them more later. I don't have the words to speak about them right now. But an 0-3 loss versus Gen.G, a 1-3 loss versus Midnight, and a 2-3 loss versus Reciprocity. The reason why I have Envy higher up than maybe you might have expected based on their win-loss ratio is the simple fact that they have a lot of talent on this team, and I think they're going to eventually get to a point where you're going to see some of those moments that they had versus OpTic in the hardpoint specifically, where they were wiping the floor with OpTic late in that hardpoint game, where they were able to win a 250 to 154 on CSAT. I think you're going to start seeing more of that. The biggest question mark is, can they move fast enough to get to a point where they can contest? Again, they will be playing up against UIU first, so consider that would essentially be a free game. Bevels is going to be preparing them for that, and beyond that, I think just the strategies and the executions are going to be feeling a lot more natural for these guys as they go forward. In my 11th spot, I have Heretics slipping down a little bit, and this team looked absolutely terrible versus Gen.G. With the exception of the Search and Destroy was close. They played a handful of close Search and Destroys throughout the week, but I just don't know how I feel about Vortex, to be honest, yet. He's had a couple of decent moments, a couple of moments where I'm just like, yikes, that's not what you want to see. So for Heretics, this is the worst that they've looked, and again, they have never finished outside the top 8. Fortunately for them, they will already be in the playoffs. They do have to play in against the qualifier, or at least one of the qualifiers from the play-in bracket, but they do have a double elimination bracket to kind of get themselves a little bit more familiar with each other and hopefully get some momentum going in their favor. But I would not be surprised to see this Heretics team come out their first game of their playoffs and lose, because they've had slow starts to a lot of their tournaments, and honestly, with this roster, this is, I would say, the worst that they've looked. So as far as them possibly coming out slow, I think the chances of that happening are actually relatively high. In the 10th spot, taking a significant boost, I have Midnight, and they played a very strong week. Yes, you had a 3-1 win and a 3-0 win versus Elevate and Heretics to start off. Sure, whatever. The 0-3 loss to United was actually a little bit closer than it might suggest. The hardpoint was a little bit ugly, 160 to 250, but it was a round 11 search and destroy and a round 5 control. Actually, to be honest, their control looked very, very good, as they did go 2-2, but their 2 losses were in round number 5. So for this Midnight team, who just went 5-1 in hardpoint, were able to go 2-2 in the search and destroy, where again they went to round 11 or round 10 in every single match, and then their control, which they had a 2.5 average for them, only giving up 1.5, is actually really, really strong. And I think this roster has really kind of opened up a lot of people's eyes. You know, Royalty and Zap have a lot of familiarity with each other now after playing from UIU. Frosty is a madman, and he can absolutely pop off at any given moment. Parasite was playing around with a couple different strategies early in the week with the Grav and the GKS. I don't think we'll see too much more of that. And Lamagon has been serviceable. I won't say he's been incredible, but he's been good. So this Midnight team, honestly, I think they could do a lot of really great things. They'll be going into their first play-in game, and they'll be playing up against Elevate, which I think should be a win. But then they get the winner of Units versus LG, which could be a little bit more difficult because it should be LG that comes out of that matchup. So for Midnight, I don't know if they're going to be able to qualify exactly for the playoffs, which is heart-wrenching considering that they were one game away from getting in just by default. But you see it as you go. I still think this Midnight team can do a lot of work. I wouldn't be surprised to see them potentially being qualified, but beyond that, I think for World Champs, this roster could very well make some waves. So we definitely got to feel pretty excited about this team as a whole. In my 9th spot, taking a little bit of a harder slip, again, the Splice team. The more I think about it and the more I kind of relate what I just saw from Splice 2 weeks ago versus what I saw from all the other teams that played in our most recent week, I'm not impressed from Splice really whatsoever. And again, my biggest thing about this team is the fact that it wasn't just a one-person change is going to make this team instantly better. They had a bunch of issues coming into the cross-divisional. They're 219 average to 218 average in hardpoint. They're 32 and 40 there. It's not bad, not great. Search and Destroy, they're 27 and 25, 4.63 for them, 4.58 given up. Not great, not bad. Control, they're 23 and 18, 2.17 for them, 1.9 against them. That's actually really, really good. But you compare that to what they did at Anaheim, they were 2 and 8 in the hard point, 1 and 5 in the control, and then 5 and 3 in the search and destroy. You go to when they were playing with Huke, 3 and 3 in the hard point, 2 and 4 in the search and destroy, and then still 3 and 1 in the control. So this team got better at control, but have just been barely better in hardpoint and not much better whatsoever in search and destroy. There's a lot of things that this team has to work on, which is why I have them slipping to my 9th spot. So now we have to go up and we'll hit the top 8 teams, as we'll be looking at who's gone where and what's been going on with all those teams up there in the top 8. In my 8th spot, I still have Enigma 6 still sitting here. Honestly, I was relatively impressed with the way that this team played. I think that you're going to see the SMG of Breezy and who you imagine would still be Kismet flexing back and forth. I think they get better with the hit scan patch that comes in with the SMG. So I think this team could definitely be a little bit better than they currently are. However, again, they have to go to the play-in bracket. They have to go against Evil Geniuses, which is not going to be a free game by any stretch of the imagination. And then they'll have to go what will likely be up against Envy. I still see this team qualifying, but it's going to be an interesting travel for them. So again, we'll talk more about those head-to-heads as they come. But for this Enigma 6 team, they went 3 and 4 in hardpoint since their changes, 3 and 2 in search, which is great for them, and then 1 and 3 in the control. And to be honest, the controls were kind of my biggest worry point for them. 2 1-3 losses and an 0-3 loss. They did find a 3-0 win, but again, so what? That's just kind of, you know, you got by that one. I think that was against UIU, so no big deal there. Reciprocity is my team in 7th, and I was actually relatively impressed with the way that Alex was playing, mostly focusing on the Maddox. Again, we weren't sure what was going to happen. Would Alex play AR? Would Denz play for the Maddox? It looked like Denz was going to stick with the ICR and main AR gameplay, and it worked out very well for them, as they did kind of a half and half split in their respawns, but they looked a lot better, I thought, in the search and destroy as a whole, as they finished their week off 3-1 with wins versus Envy, Heretics, and Elevate. They did get a little bit tossed around by E United, but not that badly. 201, 250 on the hard point, 5-6 on the search and destroy, and then they lost a little bit more convincingly on the Arsenal control, where it was 1-3. But still, I think there's potential for this team. If they can clean things up, get some proper coaching involved, I see them potentially having a little bit of a bump, which is why I've moved them up 2 spots. In my 6th spot, moving down a spot, I actually have FaZe, mostly to make room for teams above them. But this FaZe team, I think, was a little bit worrisome as far as how they finished off Anaheim and then what they were able to do, or I guess you should say not do, during the cross-divisional. They went 2-2 only, with really an embarrassing loss versus 100 Thieves, but they also lost in Game 5 to Units, which is not something you want to see. And now after seeing that Splice team in comparison to other squads, the 3-2 win versus Splice really didn't give me a bunch of confidence either. There's a lot of things that this team needs to work on. They were so good at hardpoint. They went 3-3 in their divisional. They were so good at control. They went 1-3 in control, and they were just kind of okay in search and destroy. They went 4-2 in search and destroy. So this team needs to focus up badly, I would say, actually, to make sure that they're in the best form they possibly can be, because when they get into their playoff bracket, they are up in the top 4, so they'll be actually playing up against 100 Thieves first. We'll let you sit with that. In my 5th spot, I have E United, a little bit of a boost here for them, as I thought they looked really, really good at the end of the week. The set versus Gen.G specifically for E United had me a little bit concerned, because the only maps that they won were down to the wire, 250 to 238 in the hard point, and a 3 technically to 1 on the control. But they lost 3-6 in search and 1-6 in the other search. This is not what you want to see from a team that really, again, we were attributed to be the best search team in the game potentially. They've looked a lot weaker there, so that needs to be cleaned up badly. However, for the respawn, they have looked a lot stronger there, so that's why I have them on a little bit of a bump. In my 4th spot, still sitting there after we saw them from the weeks previous, Luminosity is still up here. Again, I honestly was about to put them in my 3rd spot, but I think there's still a lot of question marks for this team, and the simple fact that they have to go through the entire play-in bracket just to get the playoffs. And again, their road is not exactly the easiest in the world, as they'll be going up against Unit first, which should be a win, but then they'll likely have to be going up against Midnight, who I think could possibly give them a run for their money. Now, we have not seen John or Slack with the SMG patch. I personally think they're going to do very well, but it just comes down to, will the fire keep them moving in the right direction, because they have a long path in front of them if they want to hit a top 4 status at CWL Miami. In my third spot, I still have OpTic in the third spot. I was going to drop them for Luminosity, but there's really no way that I could actually do that, simply due to the fact that they, again, are not playing as well as you think that they're playing. But at the same point, for Luminosity, they still have question marks as well. So for OpTic, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt this time around. But that's not going to happen again. You cannot come into a divisional and win only 2 games against rosters that you honestly should have won at least 3 of your games, if not getting the full wipe, because you should be better than a team like United. But going game 5 with Heretics and Elevate, and then losing 0-3 to Envy, and then getting relatively embarrassed by United, that's got to change. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here, but if they don't finish top 3 in the CWL Miami, I wouldn't be surprised to see them actually being represented in the power rankings based on wherever they finish at the event. In my second spot, still have Gen.G here. Yes, it's still strange, the swap between Nagafin and Spacely, then Spacely for Nagafin. I don't get it personally, but is what it is, I suppose, as they're going to be maybe just playing Russian roulette with their substitute in their 5th spot. They went 4-0 in the divisional and looked really good. They beat United 3-2. Everyone else was relatively easy wins. I'm confused on why you swap these 2 around. I can't give you an honest answer why. I have no idea. I'm baffled by it, to be completely candid, but you still figure that the core of the team did look very, very solid. You hope Nagafin, when he gets put back in, will have a good event, but if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised to see the whole switch back for Spacely going back in. I don't know. I'm lost by the change. And then in first place, 100 Thieves. Why would they not be? There's no reason to keep them off, as they are, I would think, the front runners going to Miami as well. That'll do things for this power rankings. We will be doing a CWL Miami breakdown as well, so make sure you stay tuned to the channel for that, as it's going to be coming up in the next couple of days, probably tomorrow, to be completely honest. I'm also going to be doing a Modern Warfare kind of reaction, as well as kind of a breakdown of the game footage that we saw that happened, well, as I published, this will be yesterday on the 11th, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And then beyond that, of course, more CWL content throughout the weeks as we get towards Miami. Until next time, though, hope you guys all keep holding it down. Later, bye-bye.